Excel is very good at tracing errors in your file by itself some of the time. One very easy error for Excel to find and trace is this circular formula. Looking at the sales 2013 _errors file, we have a sheet that has a simple error, which we will look at resolving shortly, and then a sheet with 2013 sales data within. But there is a circular reference. Now, a circular reference is a cell that refers to itself, either directly or within part of a range. Now, when you have a cell with circular reference, you'll notice down here in the status bar at the bottom, it says circular references G13. So there's an instant graphical interface that tells you there's a circular reference. Also, on the formulas ribbon, if we go into the auditing little section, in the drop-down arrow next to the error check-in, we have circular references listed. Now that's only there if you have a circular reference, and then in the pop-out it tells you which cell has a circular reference, and it's G13 on this current sheet. If I'm not on the current sheet, if I go to simple error for example, and the label at the bottom simply says circular references, but on the little drop-down for the error spotting, it tells you which sheet it's in and which cell, and if you click it, it takes you to it. So there's the cell with the circular reference. We are in G13 and it's equal to G13. Once you're actually on the cell, you have a little green pop-out symbol top left, which has a drop-down information and says this is an inconsistent formula. Do you want to copy the formula from the left? So this is not telling you that it's a circular reference, but it's telling you that this formula here doesn't match that formula there. Would you like to copy that one across? That is one way of resolving the problem and would work for us. Copy the formula from the left. We then no longer have a circular reference. The message has gone from the bottom here, and in the error checking option, it's now grayed out. So there are no circular references. In the very early days of Excel, you could pretty much crash a spreadsheet with a circular reference. Now Excel will spot that, hold proceedings on that cell, and bring it to your attention, either with the label down the bottom left or in the error checking little drop down. So that's circular references. They're easily created and obviously easily resolved. Now we have other errors in our sheet. We have a simple error here, and we could ask Excel to trace the error. So when there's a cell with an error message, and we've seen plenty, hash value, hash NA, hash ref, then we can go to our formula ribbon, across to our formula auditing section, and in a little drop down here, there's an option to trace the error. If we give that a click, what it does is it effectively puts on the either dependency or precedent arrows. In our case, it's put the precedent arrows. So effectively this cell is based on the value in those three cells. So we know we need to go check those three cells. Well, that one just has a 3 in, that one has a 4 in, that one has nothing in, but when you actually enter it, you'll find it's got spaces, and that's what's causing the hash value. So if I delete the spaces, then I get 7, because it's quite happily not to add in the empty cell, but a cell with spaces in suddenly produces an error, as in hash value. So that's a trace error option. Now that obviously wasn't that difficult, but if we look at the stock data international file, we have an NA. So let's use the formula bar and trace this error. Now again, it's placed on the precedent arrows. So it says getting its information from there. Well, it looks like there's nothing wrong there. And from another sheet. So let's go double click. And that's from a whole range on the country sheet. So we know where it's getting its information from, and effectively the reason it's producing NA is because ZZ is not a valid county. So by placing the trace error question, really, it will put in the dependent arrows or the precedent arrows that it feels are the right ones to place there for you to then track back and find the error. Now obviously that doesn't solve it for you, but it does give you a pointer in the right direction. Another option, if that's not helping and you still can't find it, is to go to our little drop down arrow and choose error checking. Now this will try and error check the cell that we're currently on. So it says, okay, cell E4, there's the formula, the value is not available, error, a value is not available to the formula or function because ZZ does not exist. If we go next, there are no more errors on this sheet. So it would step through all the errors it would find. If we do that with our other error, our simple error, so let's regenerate our simple error by putting some spaces in. Click away, so we don't even need to be on the cell, and go to error checking. So there's an error in cell A1, The formula in there is B1C1D1, error in value. A value used in the formula is of the wrong data type. So I have an option to ignore that error, which will leave the hash value in there. Edit the formula in the formula bar. Well, there's nothing actually wrong with the formula. Show the calculation steps. And this will step me through. It's in 7 plus blankety blank, and you can see the speech marks there are the giveaway that there is a space in there. And it says the next evaluation will result in an error. So evaluate gets hash value. That's because of that space. So even if you weren't able to spot the space manually by using the trace option, by using the error checker, you might just be able to pick up why. And when I say next, there's no more errors in this sheet. So that's given me the space in there that I can get rid of, and then it calculates the correct sum. So that's a couple of tools that can be useful when troubleshooting. They're both on the formula auditing bar, and they're both in the drop-down arrow. Tracing an error means you have to be on the cell with the error in. If I try to do that on a cell without an error, that one there, I get told there's no error there. Whereas the first choice error checking checks for all the errors in your workbook one at a time, steps through each one, and gives you a bit more explanation as to what's going wrong. Whereas the trace error just effectively tells you the dependents or the precedents that feed into that cell that could be causing the problem.